Hello, welcome to UberCrit. My name's Andrew, like always. I'm joined by Hannah today from Trash Cult. How are you doing, Hannah?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Welcome to the board game revival of our channel. Uh, I have no idea what we're doing, but we are here anyways. Your game looks super fun, and I want to talk all about it. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about you. Um, I saw in an interview that you were always into family games growing up,
Mhm.
Monopoly, other things like that. And so I just want to know, when did you make that transition into wanting to make games rather than just being a casual board game player?
Yeah, I know some people find it kind of funny, but the getting into game design process was kind of a spur of the moment decision. A friend and I were reviewing portfolios in Cincinnati, and someone was talking about their experience working in the gaming industry after graduating. And we were illustrators by trade, and I had a whole series of illustrations that were like little trash animals worshiping different food. And I was like, honestly, I think that could be a fun game to play around with. So I pulled Joe, my business partner, out in the hall and it was like, do you want to make a game? Because I think that would be a fun use of the next like 8 months of our lives. And from there, it's been history.
How long is that? How long the development cycle took? Was eight
Yeah,
months?
it took 8 months. We're going on 9 now since it's February. We started in, was that May of last year?
Okay. And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good from idea to now at the point of launch.
Yeah.
The game is going to be launching, what was it, October, I saw? Is that correct?
October is when we'll be shipping out. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Super excited for you guys. And I told you I'd say this on the record. You guys launched in 25 minutes, or I'm sorry, were successfully funded in 25 minutes, which
Yep.
is amazing. That's basically every indie game developer's dream. Because then you get to just start worrying about stretch goals.
Yep.
Um, so I guess, how does it feel to just have it done instantly? Is it just 8 months of work just instantly gratified?
Oh yeah, I was not sleeping, I think, for the 3 days leading up to our launch. So to have it like funded in 25 minutes was both incredible and also, as you said, dealing with the stretch goals. I was immediately an illustrator, like, I have to pump out several graphics right now to have
Right
all
this
updated.
second.
Yeah, because I was like, I thought I had like 2 days before we would hit that goal, at least.
All right, be real, Hannah, because right now I see, on the thing, on the actual Kickstarter page, it says hit this number to reveal the next goal. How
Mhm.
far down is that goal? And when do we start introducing live animals into the backers? Like,
Well,
when can I get an actual raccoon with my copy of the game?
I haven't contacted, any animal rescues or circuses to line anything like that up, but I was very lofty with our goals because I wanted to make sure that we had something if we did go crazy. So I've got plans all the way up to 100K, which I think realistically we're going to end up somewhere around 35K based on where we're at, since you make about 30% of your funds in the first 48 hours. So
Rational. That makes sense. So, I was about to ask what is the 100K goal, but I feel like that's not fun because if it ends up being that successful, then you want it to be a surprise, of course.
true,
So I
yes. I'll give you a little hint. Someone has asked about it already on the Kickstarter page. If you
Okay,
if you can dig it up, you may know.
got it. The very thematic, digging through things to find things.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a big card game player. Last week we were talking with Chroma Arcana, who is another card game that's coming out on Kickstarter. Theirs is launching later this month. And one of the things I asked them, as someone who is really big into the card game space, why was it a card game that you wanted to make as your first foray into this? Because I feel like that's such it's such a different play style than a traditional board game, whether that be like a deck builder
Mhm.
or, whatever the case may be. Why cards as your medium here?
Yeah, I two-parter. I'm personally attached to card games. I can play Five Crowns for hours on end. I think card games are very accessible in that manner. And part two, from a design and manufacturing space, it gives you the guardrails if it's your first time designing a game to have a realm to work in without going too crazy. And you also know pretty much any manufacturer that deals with board games at all is going to handle cards and boxes and rule books. So the world is your oyster when it comes to manufacturers then.
That makes sense. That very similar to what they said is as well. It makes sense that you're not gonna make a game with 100 miniatures or something for your first game. Nothing like a $300 price tag, right?
Yeah.
Total makes sense. I'm a big right now. I love Hearthstone. I'm really big into
Hmm.
Lorcana. So this is all right up my realm, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you. Um, the other reason, and we can talk about getting into the game now specifically, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot. Your art style is super cute. I think it's
Thank you.
adorable. Is what initially drew me to the game. I know you yourself are an illustrator, correct?
Yes.
Did you do all of the artwork for the game?
So Joe and I split it. Most of the color art you see is mine, and most of the black and artwork is Joe's. So the Chaos deck is Joe's whole realm.
Got it. And looking at my note my cheat sheet right here.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not gonna lie. The brain, the brain's not
Hmm.
fully on today, but it's
Oh, I
fine.
get it.
Um, when did you originally get into art? Was that something you always wanted to do as a kid? Because you had mentioned before that that's like your main um job, correct? If I
Yeah, I actually started looking at the graphic design path when I was 16. I took a digital art class and I was also taking like a finance class at the same time. We were looking at this is very nerdy, but we're looking at what kind of like salaries we would need to make in 10 years in order to meet like financial goals. And I lined the two up and I was like, honestly, I like doing this digital art thing. I think in the realm of the options that come in that digital art space, graphic design would hit the financial goals for me. So right then and there, I made just notice a pattern here. If I just make up my mind and we go full force at that whole thing. And it wasn't until I was in my like last couple years of college, I went to Columbus College of Art and Design, that I started to really get into illustration. I actually never thought that my career would take me into the realm of illustration. I was like, I can doodle a stick figure, but everyone can do that. But illustration is definitely both a skill and a talent, and you can learn a lot. But as long as you got like a little bit of knack for it, you can go pretty far. So the fact that like this game, people keep telling me I was drawn in by your art is like a huge ego boost for me as my head is growing here over this month.
That's valid though, completely. Um, so I saw in that same interview you did with Blue Falcon,
Mhm.
that you mentioned working in the food industry at
Yeah.
some point. Um, did that have some small part in you wanting to create a game based around food, at least in part? Like, did your experience in that industry make you go, you know what? I myself have dealt with the fucking squirrels, or I don't know. Like, also you can curse, by the way.
Okay.
Um, I the question that was the question. We're doing well
Yeah,
over here.
you're good. Yeah, so working in the food industry was more influential in how I tackled the project more so than the theme chosen.
Makes
I
sense.
just really happen to like drawing like food and animals and floral things, which you don't see in this game, but you see in the rest of my portfolio. So when thinking up what to do with this game, it was this is our first thing, so let's go with a comfort zone as far as theme and art goes. But when it comes to the restaurant experience, I work in a marketing department. I'm a graphic designer in that, so that helped push this game along in a different way.
Got it. And when it comes to the actual design of the game, there are four different cults in the game. Each one of them have different ways they interact with each other and the actual like game state. How did you end up with four as the amount that you could have? Because theoretically, it could be however many. So how did you end up there?
We start because it's the two of us designing it. So a lot of our playtest started with two people and going in multiples of two. Four is our next comfy model that you'd be able to kind of switch things up. The game actually started as a fighting game, so the four was more applicable in that style. And now that it's no longer a fighting game, it kind of stuck with it. And we capped at four because through our playtest, we're in doing four-player playtest in particular, we're like, honestly, the game has so much back and forth at four players, and it's so competitive at that point that I think people will lose friends at five or six players, which is not the goal. We want a little anxiety to be felt, but not like genuine anger at friends.
Fair.
That's not our brand. As well as keeping the game balanced. We haven't quite worked out a five to six player that keeps the balance and keeps the fun in the same space as the two to four does.
Got it. So, as I mentioned, I'm a big TCG guy, and one of the most basic aspects you can have in a TCG is the way that you draw. I love the idea that you have your six cards, you always draw back up to six, but the reason I'm bringing this up is that if you have a full hand, you still get to draw and get to have an additional resource. Um, I personally love what that does to the gameplay loop because it doesn't make you feel like you are stuck with
Yeah.
a bad hand. Of course, you can also discard cards. That's one of the actions you can take in your game. But how did you decide that part, that even when you're at max, you could still have something? Because in a lot of card games, there seems to be a maximum hand limit. And from what I saw, there isn't one in this game, if I am correct.
You are correct. There's not like one written in the rules, but so far we haven't seen anyone really get over 10 cards in their hand. The way you typically get over six cards in your hand is if you get a garbage truck breakdown in the chaos deck. So if you get two of those back to back, you end up right at like nine cards. Which is how we ended up with that always pick up one. Because if you get a garbage truck and you still are like, I have a whole hand of action cards that don't super apply at this point, you get something new and at least something playable. And at worst, you're like, I still want to switch things up and you discard something that hand to get something new the next way around.
Got it. And this is kind of the nitty gritty of it, but do you have a elevator pitch on how to play the game? I will also I can insert some of the graphics from your Kickstarter here in the video too. But like if you were just explaining to a layperson,
Mhm.
basically like what is the goal of the game, what do you do in the game, and what is the what's the end goal, I should say.
Yeah. So in Trash Cult, you're playing as one of four cult's leaders. So you're trying to get enough food and at least one cult member to worship said food. Otherwise, why are we collecting all of this food? And in doing that, you do a couple things. So on your turn, you're going to start with probably five cards in your hand. You're going to pick up card or a card, depending on how many. Well, in the rules, it explains. And they got two actions that can be the same action or two different actions. And they go into four different categories. You can add something to your cult. You could discard a card. You could play an action like stealing a card blindly from someone else's hand or poisoning someone else's punch so they have no cult members to work with. Or our tastiest action, making a sacrifice. So all those precious animals and food that you have collected, you could send to the trash pile and see how the garbage gods treat you in a chaos stock. You do get whatever the perk is at the bottom of that animal or food that you sacrificed, but the chaos deck has some good, some bad, some just like different things to spice things up. First person to have enough of their food and at least a cult member to worship the food wins.
Got it. One of the I love that I asked this the basic how to play after I got into the nitty gritty of some of the mechanics of it. It's fine. It's
We fix
fine.
it in post.
I know I won't. That's the honesty here is if I'm asked to cut something or if one of us has a massive brain fart, I will. But I need my viewers to know that this is how unhinged my brain works, and sometimes things go all over the place. Um, One of the things I also love about your game is that all of the cults have a unique gameplay flavor to them. For example, the rats will summon food. I believe, right? Am
From the
I
trash. Yeah.
from the trash? Yeah. How did you come up with each individual cult's basically identity? Like, was it something that you put a lot of thought into? It's like, well, rats, that makes sense. They grab stuff out of the
Mhm.
garbage. How did you come up with that?
Yeah, so skunks was the easiest one because that's you're stealing someone's food from their shrine, and that just stinks for them. That felt on brand for the skunks, with their pie. And rats, obviously, yeah, you're digging through the trash. That feels about right. Squirrels, they're digging through the live deck, so they're finding something to squirrel away for later. And then the raccoons are the odd one out. We personally really love raccoons, and we wanted it to be that you could steal your own food from someone else. But in that, you can see the like flip flop of either one, where you can steal your food, steal someone else's food, trash, live deck. So they kind of, um, you know, reflect each other.
Got it. So I'm gonna ask you to do a little forward thinking with me,
Hmm.
and let's both say that this game is a massive success.
Yep.
And your is our expansion something you'd be open to? Because I feel like the game is ripe for having those little deck expansions that you see every
Hmm.
so often. I love the idea of having like pigeons as a cult. I feel like that would
Hmm.
fit in just perfectly. One, is that something you're open to? And two, if you are, do you have any ideas of what you would want it to be, or is it more of like just take it as it comes basis?
So we've been asked plenty of times with expansions, which I think is a great sign that people like the game. They want to see it grow. So the popular ones that we've gotten requests for is having possums. That's number one. People want to play as possums. We have possum plushies, but it is not enough possums in the game. So if we were to expand, that would probably be the first direction we go is making a possum cult. Whether that is actually we find the balance and we make it a fifth person, or we do a swap out, like where you could do play as raccoons, rats, squirrels, and the possum to make a different game because it would have a different feel since they'd have a different perk. We've also had questions about beach, like retheming into like a beach theme with different kind of cults, so like seagulls and crabs. We've had bird questions, so like pigeons for sure. Right now we got the pigeon thieves in there, but again, people want a whole pigeon cult, which we'd be happy to provide as long as the room is there and we play test enough and find that it's a really fun game.
I love the idea of the game having villainous style expansions, Disney villainous if you are
Yeah.
familiar or not, where all of the games and characters can be played interactively with each other, but they come out separately.
Hmm.
So I wish and I hope that it gets to that point because I feel
Me
like
too.
there are right. I feel like there's a lot of room for growth and potential there, I suppose. And really quick before I let you go, where can people follow you, your company, the all of the above?
If you want all the game stuff, Trash Cult Game on pretty much every social is where you find us. If you want to find me in the business, FoxHen Creatives.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.